One of the most encouraging updates of the weekend centered around Nick Lodolo. We'll tell you what it is on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We love baseball. We love the Cincinnati Reds. We have taken our love of the game, our love for the Reds, and we have turned it into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on today's podcast, Jeff said it up top, Nick Lodolo, he's back. He made his return, and we will tell you how he feels the day after and when we think you can expect to see him in a regular season baseball game. With an extra spot open on the roster now, courtesy of the Noelvi Marte suspension, should the Reds go out and get that elusive right-handed outfield bat? And if so, who should they get? And of course, with Marte and Barrero now out of the conversation, it's time to check back in on the 26th man possibilities for this Reds roster as they head into the 2024 baseball season. A lot to talk about on today's episode. And this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB, and your first deposit match of up to $100. All right, Jeff, Nick Lodolo made his return, 2 solid innings, struck out a dude, didn't walk anyone, got through his 2 innings unscathed, and walked off the field without a limp.
And the best part of all of it was his velocity was up. I'll tell you one thing. You can ask a Major League Baseball player if they're healthy. They'll probably tell you, yeah. You can ask a Major League Baseball manager if they think their guy's healthy and ready to go. They'll probably tell you, yeah. And in fact, if you ask David Bell about anything health-wise, he's going to give you the most positive prognosis you ever heard. But one thing you can't fake, one thing you can't sugarcoat is on-field performance. And when it comes to pitching, fastball velocity tells all. Last year, while Nick Lodolo was pitching through the tibia injury, the stress reaction that turned into a stress fracture, his average fastball velocity was around 93. Reports are, his first spring training outing, his fastball velocity was around 96. We're back, baby, and there's empirical evidence for it.
You know, the thing with Lodolo last year, I think that his dip in important reminder, his dip in velocity, I think, was all about mechanics because the leg was bothering him.
Yes.
At no point last year was there ever any question about the health of his arm. Heading into this year, there has not been a question about the health of his arm. It's been about that leg, the leg that he plants on, the pain that he feels, and how he recovers from it. And speaking of how he recovers from it, we did reach out to some sources out in Goodyear today. The Reds are off. They're not at the complex, but unofficially, our sources did tell us Nick Lodolo's fine. He's not feeling any pain today. He's progressing, moving forward. No setbacks from yesterday.
Which is a great thing to hear because that was what we were waiting for. And to be honest with you, the velocity thing is great. And you're right. It's all mechanical because of that plant foot. It's his plant leg that was hurt. And so obviously he's not going to be able to put full pressure on that if he is still worried about it being hurt, which initially reports sounded like they just weren't getting to that point that he could trust it. They weren't getting to that point that he could have a full outing and the next day everything would feel fine. David Bell had said this, and even Nick Lodolo said this. There was nothing that in the moment affected his performance. It was everything after the fact. So if all reports are after the fact, he's feeling pretty good. That's the key thing. So the good news is our consternation and your consternation about Nick Lodolo may have been premature. And things are looking good. So now the pitching staff is back to best case scenario because if he's healthy, that means everything falls into place.
Consternation. Look at you using your big Alabama words. I'm so proud of you. But you're right. Everything falls back into place. And it leads us to a question about how the Reds are going to handle this rotation heading out of Goodyear, right? Because they're not really going to need a fifth starter until the second time through. So you need 4 starting pitchers the first week of the season. You need 4 starting pitchers to begin the second week of the season. Here's what I think is going to happen. What makes the most sense to me is that you continue to pitch Nick Martinez in Arizona in Goodyear as a starting pitcher. Continue to stretch him out. That only benefits this bullpen once the regular season starts. You have him ready to go in case Nick Lodolo can't make that start when the first time they need a 5th starter. But when you leave Goodyear, when you go to Cincinnati to start the season, you take an extra reliever. You go with 9 relievers, 4 starters. Nick Martinez is your swing guy. You can use him the first week of the season as a reliever. You'll have an update on Nick Lodolo by then, and you'll know if you need to either shut Martinez down for the week to get him ready to be the 5th starter, or you're going to use Lodolo, and then you make a roster move right before that 5th start, send a reliever out, bring Lodolo in, and then you put him as the 5th guy. I think the front 4 of that rotation, despite what we see floating around, I keep seeing comments about Andrew Abbott starting the season in AAA, and I just simply don't see that. I see the front 4 being Montas, Green, Ashcraft, Abbott, and then either Lodolo or Martinez, depending on where Nick Lodolo is at when that 5th spot comes up.
Yeah, I would find it hard to believe that Andrew Abbott would start the year in AAA. The only thing I would say is that if he does do that, that's them saying that it's not even just the game action. Like, people are quoting box scores and looking at his performances in spring training games and thinking that that means something for the regular season. That's where I'm like, no, that doesn't mean anything. But
because remind everybody about spring statistics.
They don't matter. Because
they don't matter.
They don't translate. They don't go 1 for 1. Like, as much as I want to get excited about Ellie hitting 400 in Arizona right now, I'm not getting excited about that. I'm getting excited about what I see and the different plays that he is making. I'm not getting excited about the numbers and things like that out in the Cactus League right now. The only reason that Andrew Abbott would start the year in AAA is if they're seeing stuff off the field, behind the scenes, that is discouraging to them. And so far, we haven't heard any sort of reporting to that effect. So I'm with you. I would be very surprised to not see him in the starting rotation. And this is a perfect opportunity to come with 9 relief pitchers. And you're going to see TJ Antone and Fernando Cruz, I believe, because that means that if Ian Gibaut were to break camp with the team, he would have to get into a game pretty soon. We're getting to the point where it doesn't take long for a relief pitcher to get ramped up for the season, but we're starting to get to that 0 hour for relief pitchers as well. Like, we're past the point. Nick Lodolo, even if there's no setbacks, he's not going to be able to be completely ramped up until the second turn through the rotation anyway. So that's why they're breaking camp with more relievers, most likely. And then Ian Gibaut has been reported to be doing BP and things like that. But outside of that, we haven't seen him in a game yet. So we've seen TJ Antone, we've seen Fernando Cruz. We know the quality that those guys have, especially Antone when he's healthy. So we're going to get an extended look at them most likely. I would be surprised at this point unless Gibaut comes back in the next day or so. And then we do have that conversation again. But I'm with you. I think that you keep Martinez stretched out because it's much easier for a stretched out pitcher to only throw 1 inning than for a guy who's only thrown 1 inning at a time through spring training to throw 2, 3, 4, 5 innings. And that's why you keep Nick Martinez stretched out through spring training.
You know, we talked about Gibaut a little bit off air, and I think we should bring that on air because I think you made a pretty good point in that one of the better outcomes for the Reds would be actually if Gibaut needs an extra 10, 15 days to get ready for the season and opens the season on the IL, because that would let them get good looks at Cruz and Antone. And I've told you many times, I love watching TJ Antone pitch. I love just what he's like on the mound and how he confuses hitters and how he just makes them look silly a lot. But TJ Antone's arm has never been able to hold up to a full season. When he came back from the injury last season, he was only 6 games in before there was a little soreness. And I know the Reds said the same thing that they said about Lodolo. Oh, well, he would have been fine if we had made the playoffs or if. We don't know that to be true. I want to see some extended use of TJ Antone so I can become a believer again in his durability. And I want to do that without losing Ian Gibaut, who pitched in 70 games last year.
Right, and the key with this, as we've said in the past, everydayers will know, Ian Gibaut out of options, Fernando Cruz, TJ Antone have options. So if there is a case where both guys get brought out of camp and one or both of them are pitching horribly, they could send him down to AAA with no problems whatsoever. This is just another added ability for Nick Krall to play a little bit of roster games by bringing up some extra relievers, having Ian Jabot on the injured list and ready to bring him off whenever they need him to be. But it's clear the updates are very encouraging about Nick Lodolo, and the Reds' best version of their pitching staff can commence. You know, Steve, with the Marte suspension and all, and how the roster is moving afterward, should the Reds sign an outfielder? Because coming up next, we will look at 3 options, 1, 2, 3, that are out there on the market right now, and if the Reds should go after one of them or not. Conference tournaments are here, which means the biggest moments in college basketball are getting closer. Be a part of the action on PrizePicks for both men's and women's college basketball. You can get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, which is America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into 1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today. Just check it out in the App Store. That's PrizePicks. You can also put together some PrizePicks with MLB season stats as well. In fact, I was looking at this, and we've talked about this before, but they have the total number of strikeouts for Hunter Green this year set at 189.5. You just pick more or less on that statistic. And then to increase your payout, add more in. Like, how many steals is Ellie De La Cruz going to have? 40.5, pick more or less. I'm picking more on both of those. You can add in some more stuff as well. Just download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to match up to $100 on your first deposit. Again, download the app and use code LOCKEDONMLB for up to $100 match on that first deposit. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And you know what else is very easy? Is checking out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 feed on YouTube, because Locked On has created the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Subscribe to Locked On Sports today, and get all of the biggest sports stories with the local angle, like Steve and myself, as well as the national angle of our shows that cover every single league. Again, subscribe to Locked On Sports today, wherever you find it on YouTube, because it's on YouTube. And coming up on the next Locked On Reds podcast for our everydayers out there, are the Reds getting their final evaluation on Dylan Cease together Tuesday night? We'll discuss. But Steve, one thing we definitely need to discuss is, do the Reds need to add a right-handed outfield bat? Because it's actually something we had at the beginning of the offseason. We said this is a need. This is something that the Reds need to address. We thought that they might be trying that with their roster and when they added Jeimer Candelario and how they can move some guys around and things like that. But now half the season is gone for Noelvi Marte. He also is not eligible for the postseason because of the suspension. Should they go out and get him? Because there's 3 guys that they could look at.
No, I think so. There are a lot of good reasons why you go get this right-handed bat. The biggest one for me is that Noelvi Marte is not eligible for the postseason. I would almost be inclined to leave Noelvi Marte in AAA all year and just bring him back up in 2025. If the team is going on all cylinders. Now, if they need him, obviously you bring him up. But if this team is winning ball games and his suspension ends and things are going the way we want them to, I don't know that you bring him right back up. I mean, maybe he's next year's
retain rookie eligibility.
Yeah, maybe he's next year's rookie of the year contender. So that being said, you're right. There are 3 guys that are on the market still right now that fit the needs of the Reds. Those 3 guys are Adam Duvall, Tommy Pham, and Michael A. Taylor. For me, I think the answer here is Michael A. Taylor. I like what he's been able to do over the course of his career. Last year in 2023, he was a 1.9 WAR guy, according to B WAR. If you look at him, he hits left-handed pitching tremendously well. On the season, his batting average is a little deceiving, but so is everybody's. His slash line was 220, 278, 442 on the season for the Minnesota Twins. But here's what I like: 21 home runs. He's got 20 homer pop in his bat. And if you make him part of a platoon out there in the Reds outfield, he's going to be able to deliver. The other thing about Michael Taylor that I really, really like is he's a true center fielder. He played 126 games in center field last year and gives the Reds a valuable option if TJ Friedel needs a day off, if he gets nicked up during the course of the season, and he'll need some days off somewhere along the way. And you don't have a defensive downgrade then by putting Taylor in. You do it against a left-handed pitcher, and you don't have a fall off in the lineup either. So I really like this signing. Taylor's heading into his age 33 season. So I think, we don't have to worry about a tremendous decline there between last year and this year. I think he's the perfect fit. And the fact that he's still available, I think the Reds could get him at a discount, being able to present to him a team that's potentially going to win their division.
There is a better bat out there, though, as far as options go, and they could go get Adam Duvall. They could reunite with Adam Duvall, as it's been a few years since he was a Red, but the folks will remember 2018, last time he was a Cincinnati Red, and really, I think for me, Adam Duvall would be a good target. Both of these guys, this being late into spring training now at this, much less the free agency period and offseason for Major League Baseball, you probably could get them on a pretty nice deal for the Reds. They could get like a 1-year deal with maybe a team option for the following season or something like that. And with Adam Duvall, you're adding a good bat. Now, these past couple of years, he's been up and down, but last season with Boston, he had an OPS plus of 119, which 19% above league average. And if you're worried about what positions he can and cannot play, in those 92 games that he played for Boston last season, 61 of them were in center field. Now, not as good a glove as Michael A. Taylor. Michael A. Taylor's the best glove out on the market, probably best glove on the market, infielder or outfielder. So there's that to argue with when it comes to him. But Adam Duvall brings kind of a stability in that he can play all three outfield spots, and you don't think of him as a liability in the lineup. Last season, he had a 247 average, 303 on base, 531 slugging in 92 games. Again, we're not going to go too crazy about the batting average. If you see a slugging of 531, he could slot very easily into a 6, 7, 8 spot if he is starting against left-handed pitching. And really, that's the key here, is that you find somebody that is a platoon partner for Jake Fraley or Will Benson, because I think both have proven that they absolutely need to be in the lineup against right-handed pitching. Against left-handed pitching last year, Adam Duvall, 477 slugging percentage just against the lefties. And when you expand it out into the career that he has had, he actually goes right there, 469. So he is constantly putting the pressure on left-handed pitching, where you would be able to shore up. I really feel like it's good, the development that we've seen in Stuart Fairchild, but if you go out and you get one of these guys, you're going to take the pressure off of needing Stuart Fairchild to be that guy 30% of the time against right-hand or left-handed pitching.
And the third guy that is kind of maybe in this conversation, Jeff, is another player to reunite with, and that would be Tommy Pham, the commissioner slapper himself. He had a decent year last year. He was 1.5 in WAR, Jeff.
Fantasy commissioner slapper. If he slapped the real commissioner of baseball, I think we would all like.
That would be different. I would sign him for that. If I could guarantee, if you could guarantee me a Rob Manfred slap, if we signed Tommy Pham, I would start to GoFundMe.
We built a statue, I
to
think.
get him done, no doubt. But listen, he was 1.5 in WAR, Jeff. He hit 16 home runs. The thing with him is a little bit older. He's going to be heading into his age 36 season. He split time last season between the New York Mets and the Arizona Diamondbacks. And it was a respectable season. I'm not knocking him, but I think in the grand scheme of things, given his propensity for a little bit of controversy, given the fact that he's 3 years older than Taylor and 2 years older than Duvall, I worry about the decline. I worry about him falling off what he did last year versus what he could do this coming year. I just feel like he's not as good a fit for the Reds specifically as the other two guys are. Now, in the grand scheme of things, if you can't get the other two and you're left with Tommy Pham, then I would be okay with it. It's not like I hate the idea. It wouldn't be like, oh my God, this is terrible. but I just think there's better options, better fits than going out and getting Tommy Pham.
When I think that's even just ranking him merit wise. Like, I think if we look at these value wise, I think that Adam Duvall might be the most expensive. Now, I don't think it's like crazy. I don't think we're talking about like $20 million here, but we might be talking about like $8 or $9 million for Adam Duvall, probably 6 or 7 for Tommy Pham, and maybe even 4 or 5 for Michael A. Taylor. So that kind of makes that a little bit more interesting to me. I think ultimately, if you made me pick, I think I actually kind of have to agree with you on Michael A. Taylor, but I do love the bat of Adam Duvall. I think either or, I feel a lot better about the Reds situation all year long if you sign one of those two guys rather than just chalk this up to, Stuart Fairchild's got it.
Yeah, and the other piece with Pham, Jeff, that we didn't really touch on is while he did play some in center field in 2023, he only played a few games there. I think he got into like 6 or 7 games total in center field. And the Reds, I think if they're going to do this, if they're going to go out and get a guy, it needs to be somebody that can play a true center field and provide days off to TJ Friedel, provide insurance in case of injury. And I don't see Tommy Pham as being that insurance policy in center field.
No, I agree with you. I think it's one of the other two guys, and I think Michael A. Taylor's probably a little bit ahead of Adam Duvall.
All right, Jeff. Well, I think the big takeaway for me is that I like Adam Duvall, but I think we've kind of landed in a place where you get a younger player in Taylor, you get a good defender in Taylor, and you get a guy that can be the right-handed platoon partner for TJ Friedel or any of the other left-handers, Fraley or Benson, to get you through the 2024 season. All right, Jeff, with all of these roster changes over the last week, that means the 26th spot is up for grabs again. Coming up, we're going to tell you who should get it. We're going to get into that next. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TVs offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us on Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep you up to date on all of the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. They have it all. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. Make sure that you bookmark InsideTheReds.com. We're writing over there. Jeff's writing. I'm writing. James Rapine, Audie Elmore, Caleb Sisk. Rick Uccino, the list goes on and on. Great written coverage. You can contact Jeff and I in between episodes on the socials, on X, Jeff at Jeff Carr. That's Jeff with 3 F's. Me at S. Offenbaker. That's with 2 F's. The show is at Locked On Reds, no F's in that. Also, check out our Discord community where we are talking Reds baseball between shows and during games. The link for that is down in today's show description. Okay, Jeff, the 26-man conversation. We've had this conversation a lot, and we kind of got to a consensus where we thought Stuart Fairchild had done enough to be the 26th man on this roster. And then suddenly, thanks to Noel V. Marte, another roster spot has opened. Now, if the Reds go do what we talked about in that last segment and go get that right-handed outfield bat, well, that replaces the Noel V. Marte roster spot, and we're back to a 26-man conversation. If they don't do that, I would assume that Stuart Fairchild is now our 25th guy, because you're going to need that outfielder. And then that still leaves the 26th spot open for someone to slide in there and go north with this team when camp breaks. And the question is, who should that be now? Jose Barrero is out of the conversation. I think that leaves us with hometown boy Josh Harrison being in the conversation. Do we really consider Ford a viable candidate for the 26th man? I don't think it'll be a youngster. It's not going to be Edwin Arroyo. It's not going to be Blake Dunn. It's not going to be any of those young guys. This is going to be a guy that plays sporadically, that you're okay in slowing down their development. And that is not those two guys. So where do the Reds go from here with that 26-man roster spot?
Well, and I think too, if the Reds make a move or if they don't, this conversation is the same, because if they don't make a move, Fairchild's the guy for 25. Mm-hmm. And if they do make a move, then I still think they're looking for the same person here. I think that it's probably a little bit more value on a guy that can play both infield and outfield, but you don't necessarily have to pick on the position too much. What kind of value do they bring with the bat? What kind of value do they bring in run production? Because I think at this point, we figured out that we have a backup outfielder one way or the other. They either sign one or it's Stuart Fairchild. Then you look at who gives you the best production, and you add in the utility kind of as a sprinkled part of this discussion. So I think really who it comes down to is Josh Harrison or Nick Martini. Spoiler alert, Nick Martini, not spoiler alert, but whatever. I was thinking of something, embrace the bait. Nick Martini is on the 40-man roster. You don't have to add him to the 40-man roster to do this. It's just, does he break camp with the ball club? And then the other obvious part of that argument is he plays corner outfield or first base. Josh Harrison plays middle infield or corner outfield, but I think I like Nick Martini's bat a little bit more there. So I don't know. I think I kind of power rank it Nick Martini first for the 26th man, now that Stuart Fairchild is going to be able to take care of backup center field and right-handed outfield bat.
All right. While I'm making this point, Jeff, confirm Nick Martini's options status for me. I think it's a different conversation if the Reds go out and sign an outfielder. If they bring in that right-handed bat, like we talked about there in the last segment, if it's one of those guys, I think that's bad news for Stuart Fairchild, and I think that's bad news for Nick Martini. They don't need another left-handed outfield bat. They've got Jake Fraley, they've got Will Benson, they've got TJ Friedel. They don't need that bat. They really don't need any help at first base. Jonathan India is going to provide that help at first base because Jamer Candelario can play there. CES is going to play there. There's really not any room for Martini. I think if the Reds go and sign an outfielder, it bodes the best for Josh Harrison, because he can play not just middle infield, he can play pretty much anywhere on the infield, and he can play corner outfield, and he's right-handed. So he checks all of the boxes that the Reds could utilize in that 26-man position, and he's going to be a guy that doesn't make a ton of noise if he's not getting regular playing time. If he's only coming in as a pinch hitter, if he's only, making a late inning defensive switch, if he's only coming in a blowout, he'll be happy with that to have a job and be on the team. I think for all of those reasons, if the Reds sign a guy, it's Josh Harrison. Now, if they don't, then I think we're back to where we kind of started with Stuart Fairchild as 25. And then you take the remaining best available characters to come up with your 26th man, and may the best man win. But I think if they sign that outfielder and fill that need, it changes what the team needs are for the 26th position, and neither Martini nor Fairchild fill that need.
I would agree with that. I think that, and I did look it up, Martini has one minor league option, so they could send him down to Louisville and not lose him. Stuart Fairchild, out of options, and obviously Josh Harrison is a vet, does not have options there. So if you choose one or the other, you lose the other. Fairchild may or may not be claimed. There might be somebody that takes a flyer on him based on his off-season development and how he's looked so far in the Cactus League. But he is a guy that's been around a couple of organizations before coming back to the Reds and never stuck on there either. So I don't necessarily know that you lose him if you don't pick him. And if you do make that signing, I think I'm with you. I think Josh Harrison does have a leg up just because of the positional flexibility. It's interesting to me because I don't think, and I know that they brought them in, but I don't think Tony Kemp really has much to say here. I don't think Mike Ford has much to say here, although we've seen him in recent games, but don't really see that happening. I don't necessarily know that Connor Capel has a shot here. I think I'm almost talking myself into the importance of going out and signing Duvall or Taylor at this point. Like, I think it's easy for us to say, well, the Reds have Fairchild already in the fold. They don't have to pay someone else. And then they could just have Josh Harrison at the end of the bench anyway. But I feel much more comfortable.
And in fairness, I think that's what they've been saying up to this point. They've been saying, hey, we've got Stuart Fairchild, and we think he is that right-handed outfielder that you're talking about. He's going to definitely need to prove it for me to get on that bandwagon, but that may very well be how they
regular
roll.
Season.
Yeah, in a regular season game. In a regular season way. So
it's fun to see what he's doing out in the Cactus League, but we talk about this all the time. Spring training performances do not equate to regular season successes. Like, we have to take it with a grain of salt. He has looked good, but how does he look against major league pitching? That is amazing. Like, so the first left-hander they're going to face is, oh my gosh, Patrick Corbin. I about lost his name. Is Patrick Corbin for the Nationals, whether it's on opening day or it's on game 2, that's going to be when they're going to face him. So they're going to need a right-handed outfield bat pretty quickly. And I don't necessarily know that the answer to that is, well, you just have Jonathan India and we're just going to have Will Benson play every day, because we don't know either of those as a known commodity at this point.
And let me ask you this about Stuart Fairchild.
Go sign somebody. Yeah, go sign somebody.
Let me ask you this about Stuart Fairchild. I'm going to line up the 4 guys: Stuart Fairchild, Tommy Pham, Adam Duvall, Michael Taylor. And you have the first pick in that draft. Are you taking Stuart Fairchild? No, you're not taking Stuart Fairchild. So
I don't think you're taking him with the second pick.
No, I agree. So for me, this is an opportunity for Nick Krall to upgrade the team if he's got the dollars in the budget to do it. So this is kind of where we're at. It will be very interesting for me to see what happens over the next week, because if they're going to do this, they need to kind of get it done this coming week in order to get that guy in camp and get him some at bats and make sure that he's regular season ready.
I think probably, and I think we are both in agreement they should go do this. And I think that very much likely you at home are as well. I think it's going to be interesting because I believe what the Reds will end up doing is roll the dice with Fairchild and hope that none of those 3 guys get signed in the first couple of months of the season. And if Stuart Fairchild doesn't pan out and there doesn't seem to be any development like they hope there would be in camp, then maybe they make the move. They swap out Fairchild for one of these guys. That's going to be a little bit of a gamble. We'll see if it pays off. But I think we're in agreement. Fairchild is not the best option, and the 26th man is most likely going to be Josh Harrison. So we'll see exactly how that all pans out. But on that bombshell, it's time to end. Steve, take us away.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks, as always, for making us your first listen every day. Everydayers. Coming up on the next Locked On Reds, Jeffrey, are the Reds getting their final evaluation on Dylan Cease Tuesday? Oh boy, Jeffrey. I can't wait to read the comment section. In the meantime, what can folks expect from you and me as we prepare for this earth-shaking Dylan Cease evaluation?
They can expect us to be locked in the performances on the field and how everybody's looking. They can expect us to be all over our sources in Goodyear to make sure that we're getting them the right information. They can expect us to be all over the rumors about possible trades that could be happening, maybe or maybe not. And they can expect us to be Locked On Reds every single day.
Hashtag Jeff loves Dylan Cease.
Am I going to get called Clickbait Car again?